You've been searching for the best way to generate passive income in your life and heard that real estate is a great way to do it. But you're tired of all the so-called gurus who are all talk and no substance. Get ready to celebrate because Kevin Buck has spent 14 years successfully making it happen. This is the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Now, here's Kevin Buck.
Hey guys, Kevin Buck here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. And our guest for this week's show is real estate and assisted living investment expert, Gene Guarino. Now, whether you know it or not, Gene is one of the repeat offenders that we've had on the show. Okay, it's been a number of years since we had him here, but I thought it'd be great to bring him back and get an update on both his business as well as the assisted living niche. In fact, if you haven't already listened to it, I suggest you go back. It's many episodes ago. It was back in episode number 53 and listen to our first show that we did together. And that might act as a primer for our talk today. Now, just a little bit about Gene. Gene is a certified financial planner in the U.S. and Australia, as well as a full-time real estate investor with more than 30 years of experience in just about every area of real estate, including both residential and commercial. Today, Gene is focused exclusively on residential assisted living homes. And he's going to share with us how this unique combination of residential and commercial, along with the timing of the baby boomer generation, is an unstoppable wave of opportunity which you can capitalize on today. And here's some interesting facts that I quickly drummed up doing a couple of internet searches about the baby boomer market. According to an article published by Pew Research Center, in January 2011, the oldest post-World War II baby boomers began turning 65. Since then, roughly 10,000 boomers have celebrated their 65th birthday every day. By that time, the last of the generation approaches retirement age in 2029. 80% of the U.S. will be at least that age. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services estimate that there will be 81 million beneficiaries by 2030. That's an outstanding number, guys. And as you'll learn today from Gene, there's some great opportunities to build wealth by serving this aging demographic. And so I'm very excited to get onto this show with Gene. But before we do, here's a brief word from our show sponsor, Sunrise Capital Investors. Hey guys, Kevin Buck here with Sunrise Capital Investors. As you are hopefully already well aware if you've been a listener for any period of time, my goal has always been to provide you with as much value as I possibly can through my two podcasts, Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow and the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. As our audience continues to grow, literally, we've been downloaded millions of times by folks in over 125 countries. I've had thousands of people reach out looking to get involved in our niche. And that's the phenomenal niche of mobile home park investing. For those that don't know, I've been a full-time real estate investor for nearly 20 years now, and I've personally invested in and have owned apartment complexes, various commercial properties, hundreds of single-family rentals, and I've interviewed some of the most successful investors in just about every other asset class, and I've arrived at this one very simple conclusion. Mobile home parks are hands down the best investment I've found to date. Why? They provide investors with the best risk-adjusted returns out of any other real estate sector that I've seen. Investing in real estate can get complicated, and I really want to simplify this process for you. If you're someone who wants to diversify away from the uncertainty of Wall Street and allocate a percentage of your real estate portfolio to mobile home parks, but maybe you don't have the time nor the inclination to personally locate good deals yourself, then our team will do it for you. At Sunrise Capital Investors, our team specializes in the acquisitions and management of undervalued and highly profitable mobile home parks. And we are now providing accredited investors with an opportunity to participate directly alongside our team in our up-and-coming deals. And let me say this, I believe that we are hands down the best in our space at sourcing highly profitable off-market deals. That's really what makes us unique in this niche and as investment managers. As stewards of your capital, we truly are aligned with our investors. We've structured our investment fund so that we as a company are incentivized in the same way the investor is, which is through the performance of the investment itself. In addition, we want to make sure that we not only make money for our investors, but that they understand how it's being made. That's why we provide our accredited partners with a private monthly podcast that walks them through the detailed updates on how their investment is performing. And we're very transparent, providing you with the good, the bad, and the ugly at times. And so if you'd like to learn more about the partnership opportunities with our team here at Sunrise, please go visit sunrisecapitalinvestors.com and click on the investors link to get signed up. It's absolutely free and you'll get placed on the priority list of when new opportunities come along. Also, feel free to call us at 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. Again, that's 833-CASH-FLOW without the O. And one of our investor relations team members will help you schedule an appointment to speak with one of our managing principals. If you have questions, go ahead and schedule a call and let's get on the phone and talk. And with that, guys, I like to leave with one last thought. From the time that I wake up in the morning till the time that I lay my head down the rest of the evening, my number one priority with everything I do, whether it be recording this podcast, working for our investors, helping each of you reach your investment goals, to providing a great experience to each of our residents who reside in our communities, is to add huge amounts of value to everyone that I come in contact with. Now, with that being said, I look forward to the opportunity of bringing value to you through Sunrise and through this podcast. Thank you for your time. Now, let's go ahead and get back to the show. All right, guys, now with further ado, I'd like to welcome our guest for today's show, Gene Guarino. Gene, how's it going today, my friend?
Good to hear you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Looking forward to catching up with you. It's been a number of years. As I'd mentioned back episode 53, I think we're going on episode 200 and something now. So many years back. And so you've had a lot of activity going on over these last couple of years. And you're rocking and rolling over there, making things happen. So what I love, Gene, is I want to dive into kind of what's new with you. What's new with the assisted living niche, what's new in your own business. But just in case there's folks that are tuning in that aren't familiar with you and your business and your background, maybe just take a few brief minutes and tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into this niche.
You bet. And when I first got started in real estate, I was really young, 18 years old. That was a long time ago. You can tell with the white beard here. So 18, and I got involved because I had a music school and a recording studio and a small record label when I was a teenager. So we had a landlord and a tenant situation, and landlord wasn't good. The house was even worse. So we had to buy our next place in order to survive. So that's what we did. That's how I got into real estate. And I did fix and flip, buy and hold, residential, some commercial. But flash forward to today, where I got involved in residential assisted living about 5-6 years ago. I heard about it 15 or 20 years ago, where somebody said it's going to be a great niche to get into. You should do it. But nobody was there willing to teach me how. So when the market really dipped, and we all know and experienced that ourselves in our own area, I said, now's the time to get in. I did. And now I teach other people how to do what I do, which is to own and operate these residential, so a home for assisted living. Very lucrative and a very good business to be in.
Okay. What did that first foray look like, you jumping into this space? I mean, I know you had heard about it 20 years ago. There's not really many people teaching on this topic. I mean, if you actually type in assisted living, investing, or any one of those variety of keywords, Gene, you pop up. You're the man. And so you saw the void in the space. I mean, you jumped into the space, but obviously your education wasn't available for you to learn from at that point. So how'd you learn about this business? I mean, how'd you actually learn the mechanics of the business itself?
Yeah, one of the best ways to do something if there's no other teacher or no course or something like that is to buy an existing one. And that's what I did. I bought an existing business, figured I'll cut my teeth and I'll learn my lessons. And that was painful, expensive, hard. But I did it because there was no other alternative. Then immediately I started creating the second one, then the third one, and so on. But immediately people were asking me how to teach them how to do it. So my first foray was buying an existing one that was moderately successful, kind of fixing what was wrong, putting my own flavor and twist on it, and learning my lessons that way, immediately setting up the second one. But I do it very differently. Most people in this industry, Kevin, are in a mom and pop situation. It's kind of an owner operator. It's on site all day. They're the manager. They're the caregiver. I don't do that. That's not what I do. There's only one other person out there teaching something like this at all, and that's what he does. It's the live-in model. And I may not go see the homes for 2 months. I may go see them only when we do a training class. We do a bus tour and go see them. I am hands-off, and that's the way I prefer it. My job is to manage the manager.
Okay, so you have like a regional or district manager that oversees your operations.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Let's talk about how your business might have changed from what it looked like when you first got started. So you bought an existing facility, a residential assisted living facility, and then today, is it the same model? Are you still buying existing facilities, or have you changed your business model slightly to where maybe you're also developing as well?
Yeah. So when I first started, I bought an existing one. The second one was I bought a home that I renovated and got licensed. So that was a startup. And then since then, we've got students across the country that are doing everything from buying existing to developing an existing property and opening the business to building it from the ground up. So right now, what I'm doing personally is my whole goal when I started, Kevin, was to get enough residual income so I didn't have to do anything else, kind of the one and done model. I'm old enough to realize I don't need to conquer the world. I don't want 1,000 employees. It's more about my time than it is having $100 million in the bank. So I knew that if I had just one home making me 10 grand a month, I could pay my bills. So then I said, well, I may as well have two. And then I said, well, I may as well have four. So I kind of pulled that from air, PFA as I call it, to get to that number. But then there's also qualities. There's kind of a low end and a high end, and we have 5 layers in between. So 3, 4, 5 is what we teach and what we do. And my thought was, if I have a mid-range, an upper range, and then a top of the line home in quality and what I charge and so on, I've got all the ranges that I'm interested in dealing with. So as soon as I got to 3 homes, that was it. I was done. There was no more need for me to make more money to do that, because it's all about the residual income. Once you have a certain amount coming in, that's it, you're done. So now what I do is I teach others, but my investing into the future projects, I'm investing in other people's projects where they're doing homes, they're doing communities, they're doing big box, they're doing small homes, they're doing groups of homes. So actually, I'm now more involved on a bigger level, investing in other people's projects, as well as continuing to own and operate my own.
Okay, fantastic. I want to talk about the baby boomers themselves, and more so, what are they looking for? I mean, there's this aging population. At a certain point, it might be the right fit for them, or I guess maybe their children, to start looking for a place, to put their parents, a safe, clean environment, healthy environment to place their parents or a parent. And so, talk to me a little bit about how your model is so drastically different than that of I think when a lot of folks, if they don't have aging parents where they've had to go through this themselves, then probably what comes to their mind is like a nursing home, right? I mean, if you've never actually had to deal with an aging parent or grandparent and been in assisted living, then all you really think of is like a nursing home, like very, very sterile and hospital-like feel. And that's not at all what your business model is. So talk to me a little bit about the model itself, but then also servicing the needs of that aging population. What are they looking for?
So I'm going to give everybody just kind of that little primer so they understand. There's kind of like different levels. So from the core level, it's what's called independent living. When you said, a great question, what is somebody looking for, a senior? And the reality is safety, security. Their biggest fear is that their money is going to run out before they're done. And the concept of living in a home, a house, it's a burden. It's not like, this is great and I'm building equity. It's maintenance, it's upkeep, it's taxes, it's a hassle. So what they're looking for is safety and security. So we start with that premise. The next thing is, as a real estate investor, most of us are, the listeners here, the concept of you're buying a place that you're going to rent to somebody else. If you rent it to somebody else, is it their first place, their next place, or their last place? So with the senior, they're not looking to be there for a year or two and move on or buy their own home. They're looking for their last place. So if you just want to get into rentals and in the senior market, be focusing on what do they want? Single level, wide doors, a few bedrooms, not 10 bedrooms, but 2 bedrooms. Just that senior housing aspect, that twist. If you want a long-term tenant, that would be a great way to go. Next level up would be kind of a Golden Girls model where you have a home that's got 4 seniors in it. Maybe the husband or wife has passed away. They're living in community with 4 people, no assisted living. Assisted living is the next step. Nobody moves into assisted living because they want to. It's usually an event. So something happened. They fell. They went to the hospital, didn't break their hip, but now somebody's got to keep an eye on them. The kids come home for the holidays, not sure if mom took her meds or is eating at all. So now they need assistance that the kids, quote unquote, 50, 60 years old, can't provide. So now they may move into assisted living, not a nursing home, no medical care, but it's a group home for the elderly with 24-hour care for their ADLs, activities of daily living. So that's where I live, that area of the assisted living. We do it in a residential model because you can get a home and put 10 seniors in it. Could be 5, could be 15, but 10 is kind of the mid-range right there. 10 seniors, 2 caregivers, they're being taken care of, but they're paying 4, 5, 6,000 a month each. So the economics of it are enormous, and we're providing a great service. Beyond that is nursing homes and skilled nursing and so on and so forth. So we live in that mid-range of that residential assisted living.
Okay. Let's talk about the typical size of a home. You'd mentioned like kind of the sweet spot's about 10 seniors per home, per residential assisted living. And what does that look like? I mean, square footage per resident, general idea of what the average, assisted living might look like that's in your portfolio.
You got it. So there's 30 to 40,000 of these homes across the country, and many of them are small homes, meaning 1,500 square feet with 5 residents. That's kind of a typical model. You really can't do that as a business, though, Kevin, and make money. You got to go bigger so you have enough money coming in to pay caregivers. I was playing poker last night. One of my buddies there, he buys properties and rents them to people who do this as a mom and pop. So they have 5, 6 residents. They're in the home and so on. So that would be what I would call an average home, 1,500 square feet. Now, what we do is different. We want a nicer home in a nicer area and a bigger home. A rule of thumb is 300 square feet of living space per resident, not a bedroom, but living space. So a 3,000 square foot house could easily, comfortably have 10 residents in it. Typically 2 people in a bedroom, but better if you have private rooms, private bedrooms. So our homes are 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 square feet. They're very big, comfortable. Most of the bedrooms are private rooms, but some are big enough to have 2 people, husband and wife, or 2 women, 2 men. And that's just an economic situation. Typically, most people want a private room with a private bath. And if they've got that, they're paying more than somebody with a shared room and a shared bath. So 300 square feet would be kind of an average. Single level would be the best, but most areas of the country have 2 levels. It's just now you have stairs that a senior may have to deal with. Not a problem for many seniors, but for older ones or people that have walkers or wheelchairs, they're not going to go up and down stairs. You have to have their living space on the first level. But that's kind of what it looks like.
Okay, great. And so the underlying zoning of one of these homes, I mean, they were built for a single family purpose, and now there's a higher and better use for them, and in most instances, and that's what you're finding. Your use is a higher and better use, at least from a revenue standpoint. And so the underlying zoning that exists with these homes, I mean, are these just normal residential single family homes that are in neighborhoods all across America?
They really are.
Okay.
And, it's residential, it's not commercial. And most people, one of the big questions they always come up with is, well, what about the covenants, codes, and restrictions? So CC and all. What about homeowners associations? So number one, the state has rules as to what you can and can't do inside that home. Many states do have you can't have more than 4 unrelated adults in that home. Those rules are created around colleges typically because they don't want the animal house, sororities, fraternities, that type of thing. So in seniors, because I'm going to use the word, it's a protected class because of the Fair Housing Act from 68 and 86, I think it is. You can't discriminate based on age and everything else. So the concept of having 10 people in the home, it is still a single family home. Whether they're related or not, doesn't matter. Who's to say you can't have more than 4 because there's families. So I've got 4 kids, so that means 2 of them can't live in the house. What does that mean? So the point is, related or unrelated, how many people? The home still has to be safe. It has to, meet code and all that. So in this niche itself, we do it in the middle of neighborhoods. Like I'm in a neighborhood right here with a small HOA. The HOA could not stop me from doing it right here in this house because they have no clout. They can battle it all they want, but they're going to lose the battle because the Fair Housing Act allows us to do it.
Have you or your students ever had that battle and actually pushed through and won?
Absolutely. And because yes, and you can, you will. On the other hand, I don't want a battle. We don't need a battle. We're so far ahead of this curve right now that we're at such a great time to get in that it's needed. I mean, you talk to people and they're right now, there's about 1.4 million beds that are available for assisted living in America today. There's 1.4 million people turning 85 this year alone. So our population is aging. You gave some great stats at the beginning. This is where the puck is going. The seniors, ever since the end of World War II, when we talk about that, that's where everything has gone economically. And the next thing for seniors is senior housing, their care, where they are, and all of that.
Is there a certain size occupants per home to where it actually transitions over to a more of a commercial use? Meaning if I found a 6,000 square foot residence in the middle of a neighborhood and, it could comfortably have 20 private bedrooms, is there a certain threshold to where it becomes considered no longer residential, it's a commercial use in the eyes of the county or the city that it's within?
Exactly. See, the bottom line is all zoning and building codes are local.
Okay.
Right. So that I always tell people it's location, location, location. Number one, I want the right demographics. I want the right people with the right income there. But number two is know the rules. So you need to know the state rules, then the local rules. And then you need to know how it flows all the way down and how many people you can have in a house. So I'm in Arizona. In Arizona, there's about 3,000 of these homes. In Arizona, as a state, we're limited to 10 people in a single family home for assisted living. Now, I know because I've talked to the city councilman, there's no way they would win the lawsuit if I were to bring a lawsuit against the city saying we want more than 10. They know it. But I'm not going to do that because why would I can have 10. So I know the rules. I can have 10 here, 10 there, make it work. That's a really good number, 8 to 10 or 15 people because of the ratio of caregivers and what we do. Those are good numbers to work with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you've done conversions and new builds. Mm-hmm. Moving forward, I mean, it's as far as your personal preference. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit more challenging probably to find existing, that have the. None of the homes they rarely have the adequate layout, right? If you're buying a single family home that was built for one single family, you probably got to do a lot of build out, lots of modifications to make it compliant for this type of use that we're speaking of. And so, have you found that throughout the multiple projects you've been involved in, is it a path of less resistance to develop from the ground up new so that you can literally build exactly how you want it out of the gate versus modifying an old structure, or is it vice versa?
I think it is probably a little bit less resistance to build from scratch because it is new. It's built exactly the way you want it, but also exactly the way the codes would require it. You can do just what you want. So the projects that I'm involved in from the ground up, the brand new, there is the whole process of going through that. So the entitlements, all of the things that go to it. So I'm not saying it's easy, but certainly if you know you can do it in that land, you get the permits, you go through the process, you've got exactly what you want. It'll definitely take longer than taking an existing house. But I want to flip it for a minute, Kevin, because I was just someplace where somebody came up and said, look, here's a house. It used to be an assisted living. They retired. They're selling it now. It's been on the market for a year. Nobody wants to buy it. Well, why? Because it's got 10 bedrooms in it. The garage has been converted. It's got sprinklers. It's got a smoke detector. They're virtually giving it away on a per square foot basis because nobody wants to live in this big house. Well, perfect. So that house will need very, very little. It's economically, it's cheap on a per square foot basis. But it's the white elephant in the neighborhood.
Sure. That's interesting. That's actually an interesting concept. Yeah, you're right. Because the typical buyer and user that's looking for it is a family, and they don't need 10 bedrooms, right? They don't want 10 little tiny bedrooms spread throughout this house and no garage to park their cars in. And so, are there other opportunities out there like that? You believe? I mean, there's an aging owner that literally just ran the business until mom and pop ran the business until they just shut it down, and now they've got this converted residential residence that now is, again, like as you mentioned, the white elephant in the neighborhood. Are there other opportunities out there like that, or is that kind of an anomaly to find?
It's kind of both, and I'm going to say there are opportunities like that, but it isn't. Let me explain it differently. In Arizona, there's 3,000 of these homes. So there are some people selling their homes and the business itself. You could walk into it and you're up and running day one. If you're in a state like Rhode Island, we have a student who opened the very first home in the entire state there. They're not selling. It's a cash cow. So in some states, there's lots of these homes with opportunity. Other states, there's just a few, and there's no way they're going to sell these things. They're making so much money. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, like you said, if you find somebody, here's kind of the best situation. They started it years ago. The home is kind of tired, needs renovation. They're very tired. They've been running the business as a mom and pop operation. So they've just kind of wound it down and they're moving on. That's a great business situation because now you can walk into a house that's ready to go. You can renovate it, refresh it, start it anew, turn the switch back on. And more than likely, that older operator is somebody who is, it's kind of like the landlord that's owned the house for 40 years. And they're like, well, I own it free and clear, so I only need to charge $400 a month and I'm making money. But the fair market rent is $1,200 a month. And they're just not thinking the way you and I would think. In the care home, it's the same way. There may be somebody that's been doing this for 30 years. They're charging $2,000 a person, but really the rate in that area should be $4,000 or $5,000 a person. They're willing to sell it for the value of the house. We walk in and we can now make a lot of money because of the income of the business.
What is the actual, across the board throughout the nation, the average for a private room? Is it somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range a month?
Nationally, it is $3,750. So just under $4,000, $3,750 private room and assisted living. That includes everything, Medicare, Medicaid, which we don't do, to the highest of the high-end private pay. When I'm in front of a group and I ask people to tell me how much you're paying or you have paid or you've heard, it's usually 4, 5, 6, 8,000. That 4 to 8,000 is kind of the range that we focus on, private pay, not Medicare, Medicaid, not the cream of the crop mansion in the hills, but $4,000 to $8,000 a month.
Very interesting. Talk to me about the staffing requirements on one of these homes. Generally speaking, let's use the model of 10 residents. What does one of your typical homes that's 10 residents in it, what does the staffing requirements look like for that?
So let me start with what the state would require, then I'll tell you what I suggest that you do. The state requires you as the owner and operator to determine how many caregivers you need. That's it. You got 50 people, you think you need one caregiver, they're cool with that.
Is that different state by state, Gene?
It is, but it's virtually the same in every state, that requirement. You decide how many people you need to take care of your community. So in a big box facility, 100, 200, 300 people, they will typically have a caregiver direct staff to resident ratio of 10, 15, or 20 to 1. Now that's a lot of people that you have to take care of if you're a caregiver. We will typically do 5 to 1, 6 to 1. So in a home with 10 people, we'll have 2 caregivers during the day. If it's a high-end home, there also might be a chef on staff preparing food. In the night shift itself will have 1 person on staff. If you have 15 people, probably 3 people during the day and 2 at night.
Okay, fantastic. And what do those caregivers typically make? I mean, is it hourly, salary? How are they normally paid and compensated?
It's hourly, and it's typically minimum wage plus a couple of dollars. So if your minimum wage is $10, it's probably going to be in the $12 range. They should get $100 an hour, but you can't afford to pay them that. This person could, in my eyes, it's a really hard job. I mean, it is not easy to do.
I bet. Yeah.
They love doing it. So it's not the person who's going to be a barista at Starbucks or, an office worker somewhere. They love to take care of people. They're not a doctor, they're not a nurse, but they have this qualification, this training that's required. In every state's a little different, but minimum wage plus a couple of dollars.
Would you say that that's the staffing is one of the more challenging components of your business, is finding quality staff, the folks that truly do care for the for the seniors?
Love the way you said that, quality staff, because I can put an ad in Craigslist and fog a mirror, you've got a job.
Sure.
People like that all day long. But this is really important to get good people, train them, retain them, and so on. So people is always your challenge, no matter what you do. Let's face it, anybody who's listened who's ever bought a house and fixed it and flipped it, the dirt, the trees, the rocks, no big deal. It was the inspectors, the contractors, the buyers, the lenders, the people, the humans. So in our case, caregivers are definitely a big issue. We've had caregivers that have stayed with us for years because we treat them like team members. So it really comes down to how you operate your business. There are certain nuances that make your life easier and more successful. But if you do it right, it is a challenge, but it's not insurmountable and undoable.
Okay. Sounds good. So give me the basic economics of one of these deals. I mean, so we talked about staffing and the cost of staff for the most part. We talked about the average price that a private resident might pay for a private room. What are you looking for as far as like types of returns that you're looking to achieve when you build one of these facilities or when you convert an existing home into one of these facilities? And I know you don't like the word facility, so I keep forgetting that facilities is the wrong word, but please don't take offense to it, Gene.
No, but actually it depends on which state you're in, because about 20 of the states across the country what we do is assisted living facilities. That's what
Okay. That's what I'm used to. And so I keep saying it. So
and that's okay. In others, and it's important for people to know that. You need to know what it's called in your area. If you're in Georgia, it's called a personal care home. If you're in Colorado, it's assisted living residence. But anyway, it's perfectly fine. In this situation, here's the way the numbers should work. And if you're doing it properly, here's how it should work. Let's go average. Let's say 4,000 to make our math easy. 4,000 average per person per resident. So this is not a low-end home, and it's not the high-end home. It's kind of mid-range, a little bit above. Let's say there's 10 residents, not 5 residents, because it won't work that well there. Let's say there's 10 residents. That's 40 grand a month potential gross income. They have to figure in vacancies and so on.
Sure.
But that right there, if I can get 30% of that top end gross income here to come to the bottom line, that's what I'm looking for. So that $10,000 to $12,000 net profit after I the caregivers, the taxes, insurance, food, everything. That's the goal. That's what you're looking for, is that 30%.
Other than vacancy factor, where does that ratio really get skewed? Like, where are some other ways that folks lose money in this business, or don't, where they don't hit the projections?
Great question. Two big things. You got income on the top and expenses on the bottom. So the income, not knowing your market, charging too little, or not being full. We constantly, we're here in Arizona with thousands of homes. We have constantly people coming to us saying, how come you're full and I'm not? How come you have people coming to you and on a waiting list and we can't fill the house? That's because we know what we're doing. And then, so that's the difference. You got to have the house as full as possible. You're shooting for 100%, but you want to build in 90%, so 10% vacancy. And then I want to run my numbers so that I can be 40% vacant and still break even. So out of 10, if I've got 6 people, it covers everything. 7, 8, 9, 10 is all the profit. 10 is always going to be that we're full right now, but something could happen later today, right? So that is our range right there, our ratio. The question you asked, though, was based on, I want to make sure I hit it.
Yeah. Very interesting. How about the marketing side? I'm assuming a lot of it has to do with relationships. Are you guys putting a lot of emphasis on building relationships with local general practitioners and doctors' offices and the sorts, or are there actual other methods to actually funnel leads your way for new potential residents?
And when I say what we do, what I mean is what I have my manager do. Okay. So when I say we build relationships, it's not me going out to the doctors.
Well, you used to before you had a manager, right? So at some point you were the guy doing it.
No, really. I had a manager from day one. And that's
really? Okay.
Choose the right person who's already got some experience, some relationships, some connection. But now my job is to facilitate her to be successful. So what I mean by that is, I'd rather give her a debit card with $500 and say, go take people to lunch, buy them coffee, bring them a box of chocolates, spend $500 that way than put an ad in a newspaper that somebody's going to use for kitty litter later on. So you could do the billboards, the newspapers, all of that, but it's expensive. It's hard. Yelp actually is a pretty good way to go, Yelp, because people go to Yelp because they want to buy something. So when you think about that, I'm not going trying to get their attention. They're only going there looking for assisted living because they want to move somebody in. So Yelp is a good hidden secret right there. But the caregivers, the relationships they build, and that the service is incredibly important. Once you have a good reputation, your job is to maintain it. And when you do that, when you put the call out to say we have an open bed, the calls come in saying we want it.
Very interesting. This sounds also good, right? Too good to be true almost. So give me some of the downsides. Let me ask about financing. Let's talk about that. That's got to be some of the more challenging components of this business, I would think, especially if you're doing a conversion, right? I mean, talk to me about a little bit about the financing side. One of your students, they go out, they found a 4,000 square foot single family home in a very nice wooded neighborhood, tree-lined streets, perfect for a conversion. Lots of demand in that area. Obviously, getting residential financing on a home if they were going to be an owner occupant, fairly easy if their income justifies it. To turn it into a assisted living residence or facility, probably a completely different animal. Talk to me a little bit about that and what the options are.
Yeah, when it comes to financing, the first thing to realize, it's a house, so it's residential financing. If you go to the bank and you say, I'm going to buy a rental property, non-owner occupied, right, commercial, but it's in a residential setting, it's just 80% Fannie or Freddie, 80% down, 20% down payment, 80% loan to value, very common, very typical. If you go to the bank, though, same bank, and say, I'm going to buy this house, convert it into residential assisted living, many banks start to freak out and say, well, that's not the box we're used to dealing with. So we tell our students, you don't do that. It's a rental property, because that is what it is. Non-owner occupied, we're not living there. We're going to rent it out to, and that is what you're doing. You're renting it out to your other entity that operates the business. So it is residential. We can get loans that way. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. In addition to that, you've also got SBA, Small Business Administration, bank loan with a government guarantee. SBA wants to see that you have some business experience in this realm. So if you're going to buy an existing business, they like that. They'll fund that. They'll fund the business. They'll fund the real estate. They'll fund all of that. But if you're brand new and I'm going to buy a house, never done this before, renovate, I need blue sky startup costs over here, that's a lot harder for the SBA to say, well, you don't have any experience. So you got to create a team of people around you to get that. The other thing is USDA. That's one that people don't think about. There's all kinds of financings, USDA, not SBA, USDA for communities of 35,000 or less. You know, a lot of people listening right now probably have never known that USDA provides funding. In this case, for the buying of the real estate, the renovating, the blue sky cost, because they're trying to help those, you know, not urban areas, but those more remote areas, those rural areas. But there's a lot of communities that are 35,000 or less that are big money right in the middle of. It's just demographically, they happen to be a smaller community.
Interesting. So let's talk about the SBA for a moment, if we would. What are the typical terms that one might receive on an SBA loan, whether it be existing or, you know, a ground up build, assuming that they've got a little bit of experience behind their belt?
So the way the SBA will look at it is there's two parts: the real estate part, so where there's some security, and then the business part. So they realize the real estate does have that security. They may finance up to 90% of the real estate side. On the business side, they may finance up to 75% on the business side. So they're going to value it differently, both of them here, and then they're going to give you a blended rate. So this over here might normally be 5% 30 years on the real estate, and the business might be 8% for 10 years on the business. They do a blended rate, so it's 6% for 25 years. So that's kind of what it looks like, depending on your experience level and so on, will depend on the rate, their excitement about doing it. But you got to be thinking too, SBA is not the federal government. That's just a program they have that local banks, whether it be a community bank, a credit union, a state bank, now say, we're going to take that guarantee on it. So your best bet is to work with those smaller local banks that want to develop the community, that is willing to do that. They have their own funds in-house. They want to do projects. And, you know, $5 million is kind of their high end. Some will go up to 20, but that $5 million and less. So when you're only talking a $500,000 project, that's a good sweet spot for them.
Okay. Very interesting. As far as the residential financing, if a student would go in and buy a pre-existing home, I'm assuming the renovation or the cost to modify that residence, that would have to be out of pocket, or at least from another source, right? I mean, because you're not going to get obviously renovation dollars through Fannie or Freddie on a, you know, typical residential 30-year mortgage. Is that a correct statement, or no? Am I wrong with that too? And I'm okay. I've been wrong many times.
There's always exceptions to the rule, but we literally have students that have paid $300 for the house, and they're putting a $400,000 addition, renovation, redo on the house, and they're getting bank financing for the bulk of it. So you certainly can go to that level. The economics have to make sense. So if it makes sense and it's viable, and the bank can, they're all about not taking risk. Let's face it.
Sure.
And the banks are, I always say it this way, bank is my last resort. I like private lending, private financing. This is the easiest thing I've ever raised capital for. There's so many people that want to get into this game. I had a guy at poker last night saying, if I just want to invest in this, can I do it? It's like, yeah. So raising the capital, syndications, there's one of my students just put together a project, needed to raise, I think 1.5. He raised it within 48 hours and oversubscribed because people want to get in so much. So private financing is great. Syndication, the banks, you got to go through their ringer, whatever their process is.
Okay, fantastic. How would one determine what the actual demand is for any given marketplace? I mean, I'm excited, Gene. I live in Clearwater, Florida, which actually we've got a lot of seniors here in Florida, so probably fairly easy to determine demand for a product. But let's just talk about I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the capital, but it's a very small, I think the population of Harrisburg, it's under 100,000. So it's a smaller marketplace. It's obviously, it gets really cold in the wintertime, not as desirable as living in Florida or retiring in Florida. So let's talk about any of the small little suburbs surrounding Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm excited. I'd like to go build a project back in my hometown. How would I determine that there's enough of demand to house another 10, 12, 14, or 16 seniors in this home I'm about to build?
So there's a couple of ways of doing this. And one way I don't suggest or recommend, but I'm going to share with you, is you pay somebody $5,000 to do a study that is kind of what is the need in my area. So that information is available to everybody. You can go online, Google it, and so on, where you're going in and getting demographics of how many people are there, what age are they, how many beds are available currently. But realistically, you need to go in that community and you need to get your own eyes on the competition. And here's the thing, this is very local. So if you're saying that area of Pennsylvania with 100,000 people in it, you're picking a community here. I want to know, what do I have within, let's say, 5 miles of me or a 20-minute drive of me? But this local, that's what's important, that I would physically go see those properties, as many as I can. Because what you really want to know is, are they full? Are they empty? Is this new inventory? Is it old? Most of the inventory, the assisted living beds that are available today, are 17 years and older. 17 years and older, that's kind of old without a renovation. If you're going to walk in and you're going to be better than the competition in an area that's more convenient, better located, you got a better mousetrap, a better product, you could be full and they could be empty. So I want you to think about it a little differently. It's kind of like a restaurant. You go down a street, there's 50 restaurants. One is empty, one has a line out the door. Both are serving food, could be the same price, but what's different about one versus the other? So even if there is another home right next door, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful or unsuccessful because they exist. They're empty, they're full. It's, what are you doing that you're different, you're better, or you're as good, or you're positioned differently, not serving the need. So you mentioned Clearwater. I want to go the other direction. You're in one of the best markets in all of Florida. It really is. I'm going to be doing a trip to Miami, South Florida. I just booked that date just before we get on here to speak and share, but there's thousands of homes in South Florida. Your area, affluent, and there's a lot of people. They keep moving in. They're growing older. They're moving in. They've got the money. You're in one of the very best areas in the entire state of Florida, which is one of the best states, as we can all imagine. But even in a community, I've got a guy in nowhere, Idaho. Conrad, Iowa, Iowa, not Idaho, but Iowa. And it's 1,086 people. But he's got a successful home out there. Why? Because these people will come from all over to come to that house. It's not just the 1,000 people here. So every area is going to be a little bit different. Your competition, what they're doing, what you can do better to be different is going to be important as well.
What are some of those unique attributes that you guys offer at your residences that separate you from all the other competition in town?
Yeah, and I wish I could say that we are separated from all the other competition, but we have a ton of competition.
Okay.
So the things that I'm going to name for you right now are things that I've taught my own students in this area to do, and they're doing it and even doing it better than I am. So things like, if you're an upper level home, have a chef. So culinary trained. Think about how many thousands of people went to culinary school. They got the knives, they got the white jacket and hat, but they got no place to work. You have a chef on staff for $10, $15 an hour, making cook-to-order breakfast, cook-to-order lunch, and a dinner that's prepared, the caregiver served later in the day. That alone might cost you $100 a day. But so let's call it $3,000 a month. But if I've got 10 residents and I can charge an extra $5,000 or $1,000 a month because I've got that feature that others don't, man, it pays for itself big time. The activities that you have, a lot of other care homes just have, it's a owner operator. So they're the caregiver, the manager, and they play bingo with the residents. Mm-hmm. We bring in guitars, songs, pet therapy, senior yoga. Amenities like some of the technology. We're having installed in one of our homes a wristband that each one of the residents will wear, as well as the caregivers, so it electronically will track every place they are 24/7 in the home. So they get better service. In addition to that, through artificial intelligence, it'll actually tell this person is now getting sicker. They're not moving as fast, the pace that they're moving throughout the home. They're going to the bathroom more and so on. So we can help potentially keep somebody healthier longer, which means they're in our home longer. We can also make sure that the caregivers are responding to their needs faster. They press the button, they instead of 5 minutes to get to them, they get to them in 2 minutes when they know they're being tracked. So we have things that we're doing that others are not doing. Our homes are full, but it always comes down to the manager and the caregivers. You know, when somebody, you have a mom or you walk into a home, you want to know that those people there are going to take care of mom and dad. It's not the crown molding and the leather furniture. It's, does that caregiver care? And that's what you're selling, and what you're really providing is the care.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as far as like the activities, I love that idea. I love everything you just mentioned there. I'm assuming your manager who kind of sees your operation, do they also act dually as the activities or events coordinator? Or do you have a separate one?
Well, you know,
that could be a job in itself.
Yeah, but it's not, you know, with a home with 10 people, and you have what we teach is a 3-pack, by the way. So 3 homes in one area, so you can have one manager overseeing everything. And now it's just, you find there's entertainers that do this as a business. It's either a ministry, a business of some kind, and they come in. So once you find them and the community likes them, it's now they're booked, you know, once a week. They go to each one of the homes, and so you have an activity a day or 4 or 5 activities a week, in addition to all the stuff you do inside the home: read books, watch movies, play bingo, and so on. But it's not. It could be a full-time job if you had 200 beds, but not for residential assisted living.
Gotcha. Is there an opportunity, speaking of 200 beds, is there an opportunity, Gene, to purchase some larger facilities that are more, I don't want to call them institutional, that's such a sterile word, right? But larger commercial properties that are currently being run as assisted living facilities. Is there a business opportunity there as well? Or do you feel like there's a much higher return on your capital by going this residential route that you have? I'm
going to say yes to the last part. There's definitely a return ability to do the smaller, and the why. If you were to buy, let's say, an older, it's 25 years old, it's a 100-bed facility, and it's available for you to buy. Well, it's 25 years old, which means there could be $1 million worth of renovations and updates that you need or want to do. Why is it for sale? Well, because a brand new one that has a country club atmosphere and has all the bells and whistles opened up 2 miles away. So this older inventory is being sold, but now you got to compete with this big one over here. So you got to really look at that. So I'm not saying you can't make money over here. It's just what makes you different and unique, and now I'm competing with them. But if it's, all right, I got a brand new big box facility that just moved into town. It's a $30 million facility. They spent $300,000 a bed. It's 100 beds. It's beautiful. Anybody would love to be there, but not everybody wants to live in a hotel. Not everybody wants to live in that apartment complex. Now, you've got a beautiful single-family home that's at the end of their driveway. It's a home, not home-like, but an actual home. You've got something unique and different than what they have right here. Mm-hmm. They have to fill 100 beds. They've got to get 60, 70, 80 people to break even. You've got 10 beds. You got 5, 6 people to break even. Mm-hmm. So their lift is much higher. The good news is they can advertise, billboards in the front, it's commercial and so on. The other news is they have more requirements. They have to have a nurse on staff and so on. We don't. This small facility here, the caregiver requirement is much less. I can't necessarily put a sign in the front, so that doesn't help with marketing. But I need to fill 10 beds, and I want the right 10 people, not just fill the beds because I've got 100 of them. Sure.
No, that makes sense. Great points. So as far as a scalability aspect, and this is more thinking, I always like to go into something thinking about the exit in mind. Mm-hmm. This is obviously a very scalable business, right? We can agree on that. What is the exit opportunity in building building up a large portfolio of these residential type of facilities or residences? And are there back end buyers? Like, are private equity, are they getting into this space yet? Are there any larger institutional buyers that are buying, large pods of these smaller assisted living type residences?
So on my crystal ball, so you can see it. The big money right now, if they're not stroking a check for 20 million, it's just too small. Yeah. And even 20 million is too small. They literally have hundreds of millions of dollars sitting on the sideline that wants to get in this industry. So they need big, massive projects to do it. So that's why you do see building of the big projects right there. The small side, they have a hard time scaling it, but I'll explain how you can and where it's going. So if you had one home, and it's 10 beds and it's making you 10 grand a month in profit, that's great for you. But no institution is going to want to buy that because it's just like buying the one rental home. But do you remember back just a few years ago when all the hedge funds came into the single family home market?
Yep.
Florida, Arizona, especially, they came in, they bought 10,000 homes, right? Because they can deploy billions of dollars. Those people that had 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 beds or homes, rather, at that point, single family homes, the institutions were buying them as fast as they could. It'll be the same way here. If you've got 10 facilities that have 10 beds each, and now you have 100 beds, and you've got a management system, so you've got a presence in your area, they're going to want to buy that. If you have 200 beds, they're going to want to buy that even more. And if you've got 100 of these homes with 10 people and you got 1,000 beds, it's a bidding war to buy what you've got. So now it's a matter of, what is the inventory? Are you A, B, or C? When we talk about apartments, we always think that way. Are you A class, B class, C class? They're probably not going to want the C class. So I wouldn't do lesser homes on the wrong side of the tracks with marginal caregivers and low rates. That's not it. I would do higher end homes. So I have students right now they're crushing it right now. What they're doing is they're buying high-end homes. They're making really beautiful facilities with the whole game plan of, we're going to do these. We get them up and running. Once we get a certain bulk heft package, then we can sell it off to the big guys, because they're big money, not necessarily smart money. So they're willing to pay twice what you and I would be willing to pay.
Sure.
So we make more money by buying and owning and individually operating that one, but they're not going to get in until they can write a big check. And a big check for them, or a big check for you and I, might be 10 million. For them, that is the starting point.
Yeah.
If you're not at least at 10 or 20 million, they're not even interested.
Yeah. Very interesting. You had mentioned something about 2-story homes, where obviously a single story is ideal, right? And folks, as they age, they don't want to be walking up and down stairs, or they might not have the ability to walk up and down stairs.
Right.
What are the ulterior options available as far as having a 2-story home? You found the perfect home, great price point, great location. You feel like there's a high demand in that area for that higher end product that you're going to build. Have you seen students, or maybe even yourself, to where you've converted and added a elevator, or maybe one of those chair lifts that are on the stair? Are there other options other than just having residents that can actually still walk up and downstairs? I feel like you'd limit yourself there if you didn't have another method of them getting up to that second floor other than physically walking up the stairs.
Okay, so number one, every area is going to be a little bit different. It always amazes me when I tell people single family or single level is best, and they say, well, we don't have those in our area. And lo and behold, it's like a red Corvette. You don't see it till you're looking for it.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's like, well, hold it. There's one there, and there's one there. There's a whole development over here. So go for single level if you can. But if it's a 2-level, you mentioned 2 ways, but I'll give you a third. A chair lift, so that chair that glides up the staircase itself, less than $2,000 installed for a 13-stair staircase. So 1 story, $2,000, inexpensive solution. But an elevator, better. Now, I'm not going to do an elevator unless it's a significant home and it makes a lot of sense, but an elevator could be $20,000 for a small one, $35,000 for a nicer one that goes up 2-3 stories. We're not talking hotel elevators that hold 15 people. It's going to hold 1, 2, or 3 people, that type of an elevator. So 20 to 35,000 for an elevator, but I'm only going to do that in the proper situation. Because now just think about it for a minute. Most homes that are 2 stories have kind of the bulk of the space on the bottom. The bedrooms and a bathroom are upstairs. And instead of saying, let me make sure that I give them access here, I could put that $35,000 into converting the garage. That garage could become 3 bedrooms right there, all on the same level. Put a whole addition on. When you do it that way, now instead of being, I'm in the attic or dormers or something where I'm in an area that I'm kind of making work, I'm now doing it differently because I want everybody to think differently about this. This isn't, let's get a 1,500 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath breeder box for a first time renter. This is a cash flow machine. What you just said, Kevin, was perfect. It's the right area, the right demographics. You could scrape the house away and build it brand new and put $1 million into the home, and you'll do just fine if you're in the right area. But if you're in the wrong area, I don't care if it's 8,000 square feet on one level and picturesque and so on. The demographics are key. The renovations, if you can keep the bedrooms on the first floor, you won't have those issues. But if you have the second, the chair lift, the elevator, those are your solutions. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, Gene, this has all been very exciting. And you piqued my interest like 3 years ago. And I know other folks that are in this niche, and you just piqued my interest again. I love mobile home parks. Don't get me wrong. That's our niche. It's like assisted living residences is your niche. But I get this space, and I understand the demand behind it with the aging population of baby boomers, and it really seems like a no-brainer. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this great information with us. And what I'd like to ask of you, if you had just one last final golden nugget, and you've shared a bunch of them already, but if you had one final last golden nugget of advice or wisdom that you could leave with the listeners today, it may inspire and motivate them as they progress in their general real estate investing career. Or maybe they want to take their path, and try their hand at assisted, residential assisted living facilities as well. What would that one last gold nugget be?
Yeah, I really appreciate you asking me that question. And the older I get, the more important that question becomes. Because, when I was 18 years old, it was all about parties, beer, girls, music, and so on. When you're 30 years old, you're just getting started. You're feeling like a kid, but yet we're getting adult. You're getting traction. Now that I'm 57 years old, which I find hard to believe when I say that out loud, it's like, man, I'm the old man in the room now. I'm the old guy, the sage that people look to. And my words of wisdom are, number one, it's a long game. It's not a short game. Know where you're going and why you're going there. Too many people run, and then they go, well, I didn't want that anyway. It's not getting there, though. It's the process of getting there. So it's not the goal that you're looking for. It's enjoy the process along the way. When foundations fell in, and I'm doing a renovation, the foundation falls in, and it's like disaster at that moment. But you look back now, and it's like, that was the most fun. That was the most exciting. That was the experience that we loved. So really try to enjoy that and choose to smile and accept it, because it is what it is. You're going to go through it. But big picture, not that I see the seniors all the time, but anytime I see a senior in their home, I'm telling you now, those seniors that are in our home and all across the country, none of them are sitting there counting their bank accounts. They're not talking about their business. They're not talking about their employees. All they're thinking about is my family, my kids, the experiences they had, the trips they went on, those things. So don't wait until later to do the things you want to do. But really figure it out. Don't waste your time just creating money or jobs or projects, because that is absolutely going to go away. What matters is this: communication, talking, friendships, and all of that. And I truly believe the more you give, the more you get. Be a conduit, let things flow through you. Don't just hoard everything. The more I give away, the more I get. And it's kind of like Bill Gates. He said years ago, I'm going to give away my $30 billion. Well, he's failing miserably, because he's now worth $80 billion. But that's the point. He keeps giving away, and the more he gives, the more he gets. So really decide what you want to do. Have passion. Go for that. Don't get distracted. But some of you already have reached your goals. You haven't figured it out yet. So sit under a tree, figure out what your goals really are. Make it happen.
Yeah, I love every little bit of it, Gene. I really appreciate you coming to the show. And what I'd really love to do before we say goodbye to one another is take a minute and tell our listeners a little bit more about your training. I know that you have alftrainingacademy.com, which is a 3-day, I believe, a 3-day boot camp that you put on multiple different times a year in Arizona. So maybe take a few minutes to tell us a little bit more about that, because there's not a lot of training out there on this topic. I mean, you, again, do a little bit of Google searches and you're going to find Gene's pretty face out there. So he is the guy that you need to be going to.
I can tell it's been a long time, because you gave a website that was that was a long time ago.
Oh, you don't have that one anymore? Okay, well.
No, I probably have it forwarded to the current one, but I'll give you, it's amazing, because where we were just a few years ago when I started training people, it was a small group of people, 8 or 10 people in a room, taught them for 3 days, drove the van myself. This weekend, starting tomorrow, we're starting our 3-day training, and we'll have 85 people in the classroom.
Wow.
A bus and a half, so 2 buses going on the bus tour to see these homes, people flying in from all over the country to see these homes, because they get it. They understand. So many people want to get into this, and yet we're still at the beginning. It's a good time. So we do 8 trainings a year now, and those 8 trainings, we actually have a team of 12 people. So the consultants, and many of them are students, which I love. If they're not family members, so my wife, my daughters, my son, my son-in-law, my daughter-in-law, if they're not related that way, they're students that came through the training, got their home, their second, their third, their fifth. They're doing it. Now I bring them in for consultants and so on, and there awesome. I love it. So 8 trainings a year. They're always all sold out. The next one is this weekend, but then you'll see the website, which is ralacademy.com. ralacademy.com. And if you don't mind, I'll give you a link for a free training. If somebody wants a brief training, about an hour and 15 minutes, RAL 101. ral101.com. A great way to get a good introduction to this, and then call us or email us for more information.
Fantastic. Well, I'm actually going to be attending one of your upcoming trainings. I was actually going to, I think, try to get to one you had coming in October, but I don't think it's going to work. So I will hopefully meet you sometime soon in person, Gene, because I'd like to learn more about this niche as well. And again, really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Guys, I'm going to put all that information that Gene just gave us in the show notes, the correct website address, which is ralacademy.com, and then also the free training that he had mentioned, which is ral101.com. And Gene, that's all we have, my friend. Really appreciate it. Best wishes to you and all your future success with everything that you do. And I'll look forward to keeping in touch with you, okay? You take care, my friend.
Thank you.
Congratulations! Now you've got more of the best tricks of the trade in building massive amounts of passive income from real estate. For more amazing resources, visit realestateinvestingforcashflow.com. And we'll see you next Monday morning.